the cloud. Like that's the safer option. Okay. Yeah, because like I always forget to like do the practical things. Like I love this work so much, but the part of me that's like the business owner that's like, oh, you should be recording these things. And like, I'm like, I don't know. Like I just want to give you guys this information. And if you're here, you're here, and all that. Okay. So I'm gonna shut up now and let's get into it. All right. So healing and understanding your nervous system. This is super exciting, super juicy, and I am ready to dive in. Okay, so a couple of just little quick workshop reminders for today. Just make sure you mute your microphone unless we're doing like the Q&A and you want to unmute and ask a question, just to reduce that background noise. I always ask that, you try to be respectful of others. If there's, I really want to be intentional about the space that I create. And it's very, very important to me to be able to create a safe environment for you guys. So a couple of things, like if you have really strong feelings about something that I'm talking about, or you disagree with something that someone says in the chat, let it be an ongoing chat in that chat box. Let us all really connect over this, but let's also really make this a safe space. And so if you're feeling really triggered, feel free to just take a step back. You'll get the replay if you need to, but hopefully there won't be anything in here that's too triggering. But also be mindful of your own personal boundaries and limits, right? So if we're talking about anything that's making you feel very anxious or nervous or fearful, or you're starting to feel yourself getting triggered again, take a step back, pause. You don't need to force yourself through anything. And like I said before, please ask questions. Let me know what your thoughts are, any feedback, if this is resonating for you, if you can feel this applying to your life. I want to hear about it. I love hearing about how this resonates for you guys. The replay will be available by Monday. I'll be sending that out, and I'll also be sending out the winner who's of the giveaway for the Infinity program. So one of you guys is going to receive the program for free, so you'll be able to really dive into your own work. So I'll be making that announcement of who the winner is on Monday. And this is not like a thing where you can't take pictures. So if stuff is resonating and you're really feeling it, like please feel free to take screenshots, share your takeaways on social media. If this was absolutely useless, share that too. I really want this. I mean, whatever your honest experience is, although I don't think that that's what you're going to feel, hopefully. But yeah, please take away any takeaways or any feedback. I'd love to know about it, or tag me on social media. And I'll kind of go quickly because if you're here, you probably know who I am, but I'm Gabby. I am a somatic and subconscious reprogramming coach. I've come up with my own very specific methodology of working with clients who are healing from complex trauma and major trauma over the last 10 years. I am a complex and major trauma survivor myself. Dealt with CPTSD and PTSD, anxiety, depression, and lots of mental health struggles for a very long time. And I really thought that, it was me. I was the problem, that, things were not in control in my life because something was wrong with me. And it wasn't until years of therapy coupled with discovering nervous system healing that I was able to really understand what was going on in my mind and going on in my body. And from there, really heal myself. And of course, there's no endpoint to a healing journey. This is all just what I like to call learning how to become human, because at the end of the day, we're just really learning how our mind and body operate so that we can be in the driver's seat of our experience. And we'll kind of talk more about what that means and why this work is so, so very important for each and every one of us as a human being living on this planet, dealing with what we're dealing with. So I have a master's degree in clinical psychology with a double specialization in early childhood development and trauma. I am halfway through my PhD program. I paused it during the pandemic because it was just really overwhelming, but I will be back starting in the fall, and I'm very excited because this is essentially what my dissertation and my book are going to be all about. This very specific methodology that has worked over and over and over and over again for lots of different folks with lots of different stories and lots of different things going on, because again, this is learning how to become human, how to work with your mind and your body so that you can get the most out of life. And so today we're talking about I guess one half of the work, which is the somatic work and the dealing with the nervous system and what that means, and how that affects us, and then ways we can actually begin healing. So this is kind of what to expect from today's workshop structure. We're going to be doing some, experiential work along with a little lecture, kind of explaining all the ins and outs. And so again, any questions that you have, please let me know. All right, so I'm going to put on a little background music for our next thing, because we're going to start off with a really grounding, peaceful kind of check-in with our body. And because we're doing that, I'm going to put on this music because this is the one I like for that work. And again, if you guys have any questions at all, I'm so excited. You're so welcome. If you guys have any questions at all as we go through, let me know. Okay. So the very first thing I kind of want you guys to do is get used to consistently today connecting your conscious awareness with your body state. I want you to connect this with this. Really, because our body is here to teach us what we need. Our body is an ancient thing. It's like way more developed than our conscious mind. It's way more developed than our prefrontal cortex, which is our thinking brain. And so it really is the driver of a lot of our feelings and thoughts, if not 99% of them, because it's there to keep you alive, keep you surviving, keep you safe and away from any kind of pain, whether it's emotional pain or physical pain. Your body and your nervous system are wired to keep you safe, but also hyper wired to tap into fear and tap into making sure we're paying attention to all the possible painful things we could experience in order to avoid them. But what that ends up doing is causing a lot of anxiety and overwhelm and stress. And so now what the important thing is that we want to learn what our body's trying to tell us, and kind of looking at our nervous system and our body almost like a machine, like a computer. And you're going to be receiving throughout your day codes from your body in the form of sensations that are going to kind of alert you to where you are, what nervous system state you're in, what's going on for you. And kind of when you pay attention, you'll be able to then meet yourself where you are and adjust so that you can always keep returning back to a really grounded, healthy, safe space in your body. And then from there, you can make really conscious decisions that are not driven by the discomfort in your body and the triggers and the emotions or the automatic thoughts, but rather driven from conscious thought. And that only happens when our body is relaxed. So the first thing I want you to do is kind of just feel into your body. So closing your eyes if that feels comfortable, or keeping a soft gaze if closing your eyes does not feel comfortable. Just taking a nice deep breath in through the nose and exhaling like that with a sigh. And taking 3 really nice deep grounding breaths in this space. Filling the belly, filling the lower back. And just letting yourself land in your body. So after a few resetting breaths, you can kind of feel your body starting to drop into the ventral vagal. You can start feeling your heart rate slowing down. You can start feeling, yourself almost getting heavier and grounding. And so that feeling is a feeling that you're in your safe space, and we'll go into all those details later, but the safe space of your ventral vagal part of your nervous system. And when we're calm and we're in this grounded space, we're able to be more conscious about our life and be more in control and feel less stress. And so I just want you to kind of notice for yourself right now in your body, just gently scanning using your awareness. What is going on? Is there any tightness? Can you sense any tension, any pain? And not judge or attach any stories to these sensations, but just looking at it like code. So I notice my heart rate is a little quick because whenever I do these presentations, I get a little nervous. I notice that my shoulders are actually pretty relaxed, which usually they're pretty tense. I notice a tingling in my belly, warmth in my chest. So really tuning into the sensations that your body is experiencing at this very moment, and just kind of labeling these sensations for yourself. And so then noticing if there are any thoughts that come up as a result of these sensations. Maybe you have some thoughts around, oh, I need to stretch more. I'm not doing enough for my body. Or maybe there's judgment coming up or something. But just noticing like what is happening in your mind as you're feeling into and noticing these sensations in your body, and this practice of constantly connecting your unconscious mind with your conscious mind and your body with your conscious mind is how we gain control. And so just observing any thoughts and just letting them kind of exist without trying to make them go away. And just beginning to make these connections between the patterns and sensations in your body and your mind. And so we'll do a little bit more detailed mindfulness practices at the end where we're really tapping into each one of the nervous system states. But just for now, just beginning to connect. And the whole point is we become the observer of our body, the observer of our mind, and that's where the power is, right? Because we cannot trust our thoughts, but we can trust our body. And also, if you've experienced trauma, you may not trust your body because maybe your body has kind of made you go towards things that have continuously perpetuated the trauma you've experienced. And so that's another lecture, but definitely just beginning to identify for yourself what feels good, what doesn't feel good, and running towards the things that feel good and making sure they're not a trauma response, and running away from the things that just, not running away, but just not putting yourself in situations where you're not feeling good. So kind of to start this out, I want to really drive home kind of an important point, which is that our body is always seeking to return to a state of homeostasis. Okay, so it's always looking to regain a place of balance. It's always looking to heal itself. If you have ever, which you probably have, gotten like a paper cut or scraped your knee or, anything like that, you notice that like your body, even if you don't put Neosporin on it, and of course I'm not talking about like major wounds that need surgery, but like, minor things, but you notice that your body moves towards healing, right? Like if you don't touch it for a few days, the wound closes, the skin regrows, the blood clots, so you're able to heal. And so that's kind of like a very like visceral example of this, but in every way, your mind and your body are always seeking balance and always always seeking being in a healed place. And so for that reason, your body and mind will always prioritize soothing the dysregulated nervous system over everything else, except when you're in an immediate crisis where your life is being actively threatened. You have some survival situation happening where, that is the immediate crisis that needs to be taken care of. But when we're just operating in a regular day-to-day paradigm, our body is constantly looking to self-soothe. And this can take the form of so many different things. And we'll talk about all the ways that we kind of unconsciously seek to regulate ourselves, which actually ends up becoming usually some kind of not problem, but we use maladaptive coping mechanisms because they're the easiest things to reach for. Things like substances, things like sex, things like disassociation, binge watching Netflix, like not having the hard conversations with folks because it's too dysregulating. Serial killer TV. Oh my God, Ermina, yes, that is me. That is me too. I was actually just watching serial killer shows last night with my mom. But yeah, our body is looking to restore homeostasis and disassociating by binge watching TV shows or actually seeking chaos because that feels like balance is part of a trauma response. And so it will literally, you talk about things like addiction, right? Addiction is a coping mechanism. Addiction isn't a disease. It's not something that cannot be fixed or healed. It's something that is a direct indicator of a severely dysregulated nervous system. And those substances that we reach for are to help us feel calm, to feel safe. And so it is a survival mechanism. It's a defensive mechanism, a coping mechanism, even though it hurts us. But that's what you see kind of develop. And so that's just one example, but in unconsciously seeking to regulate our nervous system, like I said, we usually kind of reach for whatever is closest, which ends up being these kind of coping behaviors or patterns that don't work out. So if you're someone who really finds yourself blowing up all your relationships or running away from intimacy, or you find yourself repeatedly seeking out the same experiences that are not working for you, it's just your body trying to move through that block to get to a place of balance and rest. And so our nervous system is the driver of so much of our emotional suffering and mental suffering, and much of our thoughts. And from that place, we make decisions, and those decisions and choices that we choose to make, or even the decisions we don't make, are still decisions. They end up keeping us stuck in this kind of pattern of anxiety, anger, irritability, depression, overwhelm, shame, guilt. All of those are literal indicators of nervous system dysregulation. So we actually end up creating more suffering in our day-to-day life, along with experiencing, just in general, the uncomfortable sensations of dysregulation itself. And so when we're talking about, like I said, things like anxiety or having anger, being a big part of your inner experience, or paralysis or overwhelm, depression, these kinds of things, addiction, all of that, they're all a result of the sensations in your body, and your body trying to do its best to regulate. But it creates a lot of suffering and internal suffering for us, and that's something that we can definitely move past and move through. And why is it so important? So there is a really brilliant book by Daniel Gilbert. If you are really interested in learning more, this is also going to be part of the curriculum in the training program and the certification program coming up. We're going to be doing back to school stuff. But he wrote a book called Stumbling on Happiness. And when I was in my undergrad program at USC, I took this class called The Science of Happiness, because I was so depressed. And I was okay, this has to give me some insight into what is going on for me, why I'm chronically anxious and overwhelmed. And one of the things that really blew my mind was, Stumbling on Happiness by Daniel Gilbert. Definitely check it out. It's a super easy read. It's not dense. It's really for anybody who wants to kind of understand their stuff. Yeah, that's it exactly. Thank you for putting that in the chat. So it was one of the very first introductions I had into understanding my nervous system and how it plays into things and my mind and how it all interacts. And kind of the idea is that your nervous system and your unconscious mind are like this big elephant, and your conscious brain, your thinking brain, the thing that makes us different from animals, which is consciousness itself, which is I am Gabby and you are Irmina and you are Vanessa, and you guys are all individuals, and we have a society and we have civilization and like that kind of thing where we can think and plan and create and do and be conscious. That is actually a very brand new part of our brain to have developed, because primarily we were cavemen who made a lot of grunting noises, didn't have language, and we had to survive. We had to eat, we had to procreate to make sure that our line keeps going and we survive as a species. That is our priority. Avoid pain, avoid death. And so that's the elephant. And so when our conscious brain is like a little rider on top of the elephant. And so many times we feel like we're the ones that are driving things. But let me tell you something, that elephant, if it gets triggered, if it experiences stress, that shit is gonna take off. It's gonna take off and it's gonna run, and you're just gonna have to hold on, because there's no way that you are gonna be able to slow that thing down or tell it where you want it to go, because it is way bigger, way more powerful than you, and you kind of have to do these somatic practices in order to bring it back into a state of calm so that you can get your conscious brain back online and you can actually regain control, and you're not making decisions from a place of being triggered, being anxious, being in fear, being angry, being depressed. You're not making decisions from those places and letting your emotions and the sensations of your dysregulation drive you. You're actually able to slow it down, bring your conscious mind back online, back in control, and then be able to make choices. And that's where you see the change happen in your life, because we're not falling into the same patterns. We're not allowing ourselves to do the same things that we've been doing over and over again just because they feel good or they're familiar or because they're an instant gratification or instant relief. We're actually going, okay, what's the choice that really aligns with how I want to feel and how I want my life to look? And maybe it feels dysregulated. Maybe I feel anxious about making this decision, setting these boundaries, changing my career, letting someone in when I've been so shut off from people because I've been so hurt. Then you get to actually place the building blocks, the bricks in place for your life, so that every brick that you lay is so fucking conscious that your whole life begins to shift in every way, not just how you feel, but literally getting into full alignment with what actually feels aligned for your body and your nervous system, and experiencing a life of joy and a life of peace and a life of intentionality. And so every choice we make, you guys, they're the building blocks for your lived experience. The decision to wake up a little bit earlier and meditate is going to dictate how your day turns out. The decision to sleep in, maybe you needed it, maybe that is the self-care, or maybe you're just letting yourself kind of fall into resistance. That is, a decision that you're making, right? And so that sets you up. Every choice, the choice to set the boundary or not set the boundary, the choice to, connect with somebody or not connect with somebody, to get that latte for yourself and treat yourself or to not do that, they all add up to how we feel every day. So we don't want our nervous system to be in control of that, because if it's all over the place and that elephant is just taking you wherever it wants to go, you have no control, except we fool ourselves into thinking that we're in control, even though we're experiencing a tremendous amount of suffering and discomfort. So that's why this work is so important. It's not just to feel good, it's to heal the dysregulation, like really connect your elephant with your conscious mind, with your rider, so that you can be in control for as much of your life as humanly possible. And this is how I've completely changed my life. This is how, and in a very short amount of time, which, I've been in therapy in and out my whole life. And it wasn't until I did this nervous system work that everything in therapy finally started to take, get some footing and actually can make the changes. Because when we don't feel safe in our nervous system, we cannot make those difficult changes that we so badly want to, with our rider, our conscious mind wanting to kind of direct things. So we have to make sure that this is taken care of first and foremost. Great metaphor. I know. I didn't come up with that. That was Daniel Gilbert. It stuck with me since the minute I read it. I was like, oh, this makes so much sense. So when our decisions are made from being triggered and unhealed, when we behave out of impulse, right? Because we feel something and we say something. We feel something, we do something. That is never going to be conscious. We're never going to be fully in control. We're just living in reaction. Everything that's just happening around us, right? We're stimulus driven and we're not actually intentionally, consciously creating anything. We're just reacting and surviving, reacting and surviving. And that is no way to live. It's really hard. And then, when we understand how to rewire ourselves, suddenly we get to become the architect of our life. And that's really what I like to imagine, is like we're building a house. We're building the foundations for a really strong, beautiful home. And when we begin doing this rewiring, we really do become the architect, and we get to expand our perception of what's possible for us, what's available for us. We get to almost transcend, our programming and what society tells us we're capable of doing. And not that we're ignoring or negating or bypassing the systemic oppression, the structures that are in place to keep us down, the fact that, money isn't available for every person at any given time. And I have seen so many people, including myself, go from so much scarcity, so much pain, so much dysregulation into this healing process. And once this kind of work was addressed, people are able to kind of transcend these systems in a way. It doesn't affect them as much, and so they kind of just make the choices that are kind of crazy or kind of out there, but end up creating lives that are, in many respects they probably wouldn't have had otherwise. And so just knowing that this is kind of the root of really claiming your life for yourself in whatever way you want, this is the beginning of that. So any questions as we're kind of moving now into a little bit more of the scientific stuff? I hope that all makes sense. I tend to talk in a very kind of metaphorical, ethereal way about these things because it is kind of hard to grasp. So now we're going to go into the autonomic nervous system. Okay, so this is our CNS, our central nervous system. Oh, good. Okay, I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Great. So our autonomic nervous system, very fancy word for, just our nervous system. We have 3 different states, and we also have through 2 different systems. So we have our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous system. Our parasympathetic nervous system being that really juicy, grounded place where we feel calm and safe and connected. Think about when you're around the people that you love and who love you, and you feel like you can take your mask off and just be yourself. That is when you're in your parasympathetic. When you're experiencing pleasure, joy, happiness, connectivity, expansion, excitement. These are all parasympathetic, feelings. So this is where we want to live. This is where optimal health is, physical and mental. And this is also where we are, again, in control of that elephant. The sympathetic is our fight, flight, collapse, fawn system. And our sympathetic is home to both our dorsal and our, our sympathetic is just the fight or flight, and our parasympathetic is our shutdown as well. So parasympathetic has dorsal and ventral, and we'll get into that. And then sympathetic is fight or flight. So we have our fight, flight activation, we have our calm, grounded space, and then we have our over stress place, which is our dorsal vagal system, which is shut down. So the kind of way that it works, and you'll see in the chart coming up, is that we have our grounded space, then we get stressed out, we get activated into our sympathetic, we get into fight or flight, or we're in such a stressful situation, or we have such a dysregulated nervous system that we almost bypass the fight or flight response and actually just shut down. And these are all correlated with different kinds of, in the DSM, different kinds of mood disorders, which are not disorders. They're literally just indications of where you are in your nervous system. And all of these things can be worked with, regulated, and you can come back down, find your happy place again. And no matter what's happening around you in the world, you can find peace within. And that is where we have control. And if you're somebody like me who's like a little bit of a bit of a revolutionary and wants to like burn this whole system down and burn everything down and like start over again with, all of us learning how to like live in harmony, it kind of starts here, like learning all of these things. And to be able to jump into that kind of activism work or changing the world work, you also need to have a lot of regulation, because you're going to have to kind of face a lot of difficult, stressful things. But you can absolutely, it's like armor for yourself. So I really love this photo. I show everybody that I ever meet this photo. I think it's just amazing, and I'm very visual. So if you're visual, hopefully this is helpful for you. This is your nervous system on the right-hand side. This is what your nervous system looks like inside your body. We have not had the technology to be able to identify or map this until maybe the last 20 years. And even still, this is really considered fringe in the psychology scientific world, although it is gaining much more traction, much more popularity. I mean, it's been, kind of studied and explored since the 70s, although it was kind of considered, again, fringe and woo-woo and like all this stuff, until we had the technology to actually map this out for ourselves and see what this looks like. So this is the elephant. This is what's driving a lot of your emotions and thoughts and behaviors. And it's this really long nerve that starts off in your amygdala here, wraps around your brain, wraps around your neck, your ears, your throat, your upper torso, your chest, your sacral, and this is your gut. Right? So it's like this long, spindly, windy, thin nerve that it's literally wrapped around every organ in your body. It's wrapped around your brain. It's wrapped around your musculature. And so this is what becomes dysregulated, and why we need to tune into sensations, because it's giving you the sensations to let you know where it's at. It is your internal alarm system. It's there to keep you alive, and it is hyper wired and hyper vigilant to any kind of stress. And this could be, you're in an active situation where you're being abused. It could be like trauma, or it could actually even just be like going into a work environment that you fucking hate. Like, you hate your boss, you hate what you do. It's stressful every time you walk in the door. That's dysregulation happening in your nervous system. That's your body telling you, this doesn't feel safe, this doesn't feel good, this is not aligned for you. And it's not about a personal failure. It's just like, you can't expect a cheetah to perform at its best when you throw it in the ocean. So let's look at the environment and let's shift things so that you can get out on the plains and run free and not be struggling and blaming yourself, right? So this kind of really opened it up for me. And what's really fascinating too is that I'm not like, an expert in the chakra system, but I love studying the chakras, and, obviously it's a part of meditation and chanting and Eastern practices. And so if you kind of are into that, what I notice is that a lot of these nerve endings are actually really correlated with chakra centers. So you have your third eye, you have your crown, you have your throat, you have your solar plexus, your sacral, and your root, right? All of these are literally extending into those parts of your body where the chakra systems are, where your energy centers are. And it makes sense because this is your energy center. Your whole nervous system is your energy center. So this is where we experience fight, flight, freeze, fawn, collapse. It's because your nerve endings are kind of wired to pick up on energy in your environment at any given time unconsciously. So you're not actually aware that this is happening, but it's scanning your environment to feel into the energies and to pick up on potential threats. So for example, if we were cavemen and we're out hunting, we get out of our cave and this is working overtime while we're consciously looking for food. It's working overtime to make sure that we're not being crept up on by a lion, Okay, that's literally the function. So if you've ever been walking down the street, or like, I know, like, or a parking lot late at night, and all of a sudden you kind of feel the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, you feel your gut kind of clench, you feel like something in your body happening, which makes you, and then you have the thought, I feel like someone's watching me, I feel like someone's behind me, and you turn around and there's someone there. That is because your body, your nervous system was scanning for that, and it picks up on intention, because intention is energy being sent your way in the quantum field. It's affecting when someone feels angry or is intending to hurt somebody, or is being creepy or weird. They're sending that, they're embodying that energy. Their atoms are vibrating at that frequency, and they're actually sending that out into the quantum field, affecting other atoms, hitting us, and that's when we get that response. So our CNS, our nervous system, this long thing, this big thing, its job is to sense danger. Now the problem is it's so sensitive. It was never meant to be living. We were never meant to be living in the world that we created for ourselves. We were meant to be naked, eating fruit, on the beach, having sex, and like enjoying life. Like we're here for pleasure. We're here for joy. We're here for embodied joy, right? Like that's our whole reason for existing, is to like feel happiness and connectivity, and to, be expansive. Like we're not here to suffer. We're not here to have all of these societal rules and pressures and expectations and all the things that, are part of modern living. We were not built for that. So what ends up happening is we experience stress every single day, from, waking up and you have the alarm waking you up and all of a sudden you're like, oh God, I have to get up, to, maybe if you have animals, sometimes they pee on the floor, and then you're like, oh my God, I got to do that. And then your partner's arguing with you about cleaning the kitchen or cleaning something or doing something. And then you're going to work and you're dealing with stress at work and traffic, and every time you experience any kind of stress, it's impacting your nervous system. So it's really important that I like to tell my clients, like, try as best as you can to live like a trauma-informed lifestyle, where everything from the clothing you wear to the environments you put yourself in, to the foods that you eat, all are creating a sense of safety in your body, because again, that's going to help you regulate. So we're not built for the amount of stress that we experience every single day. And so just knowing that you are already hypervigilant and dysregulated, probably just from being a human being and living in the world that we've created. Heart comes before solar plexus and sacral. Thank you. Yes, I missed that one. See, I'm not a chakra expert by any means, but yes. So if you kind of put the two picture of kind of the chakras and the orders that they're in next to this photo, and just kind of look at them, you'll see that there's a correlation there, and it's just really interesting. So this is where our triggers live, right? So if we experience complex trauma, which is like, just a lot of stress in our early years, if we experience major trauma, it's like a punch to the nervous system. And so what ends up happening is, like, it's almost like an electrical wire that gets stripped, and it just is like constantly hypervigilant, constantly overaware, constantly looking for pain or potential threats to our survival. And the thing is, it cannot tell the difference between an emotional pain or physical pain. So every time that you experience rejection, abandonment, disappointment, every time you're critical towards yourself, that you beat yourself up about something, that you're feeling shame, your body is responding to it as if you're getting cut with a knife. I really want you to understand that. It's really, really dysregulating for our body. So, very, very important to be very gentle and kind to yourself and loving as much as possible, even if it's hard, because that's going to send us back into a calm, regulated state. And so what ends up happening is, like I said, let's say you're walking down the street and you sense someone behind you, and all of a sudden, you feel anxious. That is your fight flight system being activated. And what it will do is, within a millisecond of picking up that environmental information, it actually travels all the way to your amygdala and rings the fire alarm. And it's like, there's something going on, sensations. And that's your body being like, hey, I'm trying to make you aware of something that you might need to be aware of, pay attention, wake up, look around, see what's going on. And so then your brain will usually reach for the closest thing it can to explain the kind of dysregulation. Now, it could be there is a literal threat right in front of you that you need to deal with, that someone is following you and you need to tell them to fuck off, or you could be in a room totally fine like this, just like chilling, and all of a sudden you feel anxious. And your brain is like, well, I'm safe here. I'm actually physically safe. I'm not arguing with anybody. I'm not, nothing's actually I'm not being threatened in any way. And yet I'm still feeling this dysregulation. That's when you know there's a trigger happening, right? And so it's kind of getting to gently explore, why is it that right now I don't feel safe in my body? What's going on? What do I need to do for myself? And just really removing any judgment and looking at this like this is a machine. This is a machine that works under the level of your conscious awareness. And you, for the most part, like can't control it, but you can regulate, soothe, and then figure out what you need to do. But don't let your thoughts, the immediate ones that pop up, dictate your next steps, because those generally are echoes of old programming. So it might be that you're feeling anxious and all of a sudden you're saying, well, I'm just an anxious person, or I can't do anything right, and I'm just like far behind on my tasks, and this is just it's me, and what I'm the problem, or whatever it is. That story that you're telling yourself about why you feel the way you feel is usually like old programming and not accurate. So don't trust your thoughts, but know that's how it works. You get an environmental energetic signal, your nervous system gets activated into a stress response, and then your mind starts to loop and reach for whatever it can to explain it. And usually it's the thing that you've repeated to yourself over and over again, the stories that are the most familiar, the perspective and belief system that have shaped you and your personality. And yet there are a million different perspectives we can take, and so we have to find the ones that are going to actually be conscious and in alignment and supportive for us. So let's see, we have comments. I had chronic trauma as a child and started getting chronic kidney stones. Yep, around 10 years old. Yep, the correlation, 100%. And I have a whole list of things, physical and mental symptoms of dysregulation that are going to blow your mind. And that's definitely one of them. Absolutely. Any kind of like gut issues, different manifestations essentially of being in a constant stress response, which floods your body with hormones and chemicals that break your body down. Cortisol, adrenaline, neopinephrine, and norepinephrine, and all these other things. So it's really important that we regulate, because also then we're not sending all these things into our body to break us down, from our muscles to our tissues to our organs. And stress is a killer. It literally is. So really paying attention to, again, the point of this is all to just find safety in our body, find safety and stability in our life, and find that regulation so that we are, we're optimizing our physical and mental health. And the cool thing is that if you're like a nerd, Darwin actually in his works identified what he thought was essentially this vagus nerve, the nervous system, and he actually wrote about it in like the 1800s, and even before we had any technology, the people who have really been tuned in have known that there's something going on here for a long time. And I'm just really glad that we're at a place now where we can identify exactly what this is. So we have 500 million neurons in our gut, you guys. So that's this area here. And that's why there's so many nerve endings for receiving information here. We have 4 times the amount of neurons in our gut than we do in our brain. And we think our brain is in charge. No way. It's our gut. It's our nervous system and our gut. And so being really mindful that this is your second brain, although I would argue it's your first brain. This is really where it begins. If you've ever felt a gut-wrenching feeling, that's when your nervous system is being activated, right? So we actually feel these things physically when we're activated and dysregulated. Our intuition and emotional responses live in our nervous system. So really a lot of the work with complex trauma as well is kind of disconnecting and detaching what is my trauma and what is my intuition, right? And it starts with basically understanding your nervous system and how it's responding to different things, and then asking yourself, okay, where is this coming from? And really getting curious and just doing that work of exploring. And let's see. So over the years, we have suppressed our body's natural trauma releasing mechanisms for the sake of being civilized, which is so ridiculous. So we kind of swallow our feelings, we swallow our anger, we swallow our anxiety, we pretend like things are okay. And what ends up happening is that stuff doesn't just go away because we compartmentalize it or we disassociate from it. It only gets worse. It festers. That stress energy stays stuck in your nervous system and just continues to set that alarm bell off until it's released. And so that's why if you've been doing the live classes with me, we do this somatic work, this movement of basically stimulating the nervous system so that we can release that stress energy, whether it's stored trauma from many, many years ago, or it's just your daily, kind of releasing from the stress that you experience every single day. We need to shake that nervous system out so that we don't hold on to all of that, because that becomes anxiety, chronic depression, chronic overwhelm, not being able to use our voice, not being able to take up space, making decisions that keep us stuck in trauma loops, like not doing the things that are aligned for us. So we need to release that stress to come back down, come back home to ourselves, and get our conscious mind back online. So things like shivering, shaking, trembling are natural ways of regulating, but we don't really engage in those practices. I mean, imagine like being stressed out at work and all of a sudden you're like, hold on one second, and you just start like shaking. I think everybody would be like, well, okay, what's wrong with this person? So we don't do that, but really, we really need to. So just an invitation here to get weird and to let yourself, release this stuff using all kinds of tools, because it's really, really, really important. Okay. So let's see the chat here before we jump into these. It all makes sense. You guys are so funny. Yeah, it all makes sense, right? All of a sudden it's like, oh my God, it's not me. I don't need to feel shame around my emotions. I don't need to feel shame around my trauma. I don't need to feel any kind of way about it. It is literally not you. It is your nervous system, okay? No, I'm so glad, and I'm really glad this is making sense. And some of these messages are private, so if you can't see them, I'm responding to both the private and the group chat here. But yeah, it all hopefully will make sense so that you can release any of this pressure of, like it's your fault, or that there's something wrong with you, or that you're, quote, mentally ill for feeling your nervous system. I mean, it's bananas. And this is why I really left the traditional therapy world, because there are somatic therapists, but they're few and far between, and the general way that the mental health system operates is off of the DSM, and I'm very much a non-believer in some of the things that are in there, because truly it's just about learning about your mind and your body, and connecting your unconscious with your conscious and your body to make it all work together. And this is something, as someone who survived trauma, it's like there's benefits to traditional therapy, but it's about 20-30 years behind in the science and the research. And so that kind of is where I've stepped out and just garnered a bunch of different certifications and trainings in integrated modalities, different systems, different sciences, because this is I don't know, I feel like this has the potential to change the world. All right, so now let's get into kind of what does it look like when you are in dysregulation, when you are in your different nervous system states. So we have two different kind of charts here, and I'll go through both of them. So on the bottom here, this is kind of our parasympathetic. So this is where we feel safe. This is where we feel conscious. This is where we're in control of the elephant and we're driving it where we want it to go. We don't feel anxious. We don't feel depressed. We have energy. We feel optimistic. We want to connect and have relationships with other people. We're social. And our perception is like expanded in the sense that what we when we're in fight or flight, it's very much about survival. But when we get out of that, it's all about thriving. And that is a very different place to be in, because then all of a sudden there's so many more options, so many more things available to you that you really didn't even see when you were in fight or flight, because that's not what's deemed to be important. Expansion, happiness, safety, they're not important. Oh, safety is important, but happiness and expansion and self-determination and alignment are not important when you're in survival mode, okay? And any little thing can really set you off into this space, which is why we need to learn the sensations of our body so that we can notice and go, oh, there it is. That's anxiety coming to visit. I wonder what she's here to say. And let's invite her in and let's like kind of sit with her and see what we can do. You know, it's like tending to yourself. So just really being able to witness when you're getting out of this safe space and starting to feel stressed out, that we kind of do what we need to do to come back down, train your nervous system almost like a puppy, train it to do what you want it to do to be safe. And this is like the somatic work is like going to the gym for your nervous system. It's lifting weights and creating resilience in your nervous system so that you're not triggered as easily into stress responses. All of a sudden, the things that used to bother you, used to set you off, don't anymore. And so we're lifting those weights of safety, and we're creating that safety so that we can feel better in our day-to-day life and have more control. So let's say you wake up in the morning and things are really good. You got a good night's sleep. You're feeling really just like juicy and you're ready for your day. And then all of a sudden, like, I don't know, something happens, okay? You look at your email and you get an angry email from your boss saying that you messed something up. All of a sudden, boop. That's it. That's the charge. That's the stressor. That's the thing. And now we're anxious. Now we're fidgeting. Now we're stressing. Now we're thinking about all the things that we did wrong and how could I have missed this? And, you know, now you're in fight or flight. Okay. So noticing when you get popped out of that place of safety and you start to feel stressed, you're activated. Okay. So in that moment, the gas pedal is being hit and your elephant is starting to take off, starting to go a little bit faster, starting to feel a little bit less in control. And this is where we experience our fight, flight. And I don't agree with this chart. Fawn is much more of a collapsed response actually than a charged response. Fight meaning we start to feel angry, irritable, defensive. Flight, anxiety, fear, worry, rumination, obsession. That is all signals that you are in now your sympathetic, activated part of your nervous system. And so these are some signs here that you might be in there. You have stress. You can't get out of kind of this place of stress and anxiety. You have you may struggle with substance abuse or addiction. You may have obsessive compulsive behaviors or are self-soothing or self-stimulating to try and get out of it. And so just noticing when you're in this activated place and just meeting yourself with a lot of kindness, right? So this is our fight flight. Now, what happens is that when we reach too much fight or flight, too much stress, we go into collapse. So this is the red zone. We really want to stay away from here. What does this feel like? This feels like paralysis. Can't do anything, can't make decisions, can't get out of bed. This looks like not being able to care for your basic needs, taking regular showers, feeding yourself, eating good foods for your body. And listen, I'm all about good food, okay? Like, it's not just about eating all greens and like juices and things like that. I mean, like, that's really good for you. But yeah, enjoy like, the barbecue and like, whatever it is that like mac and cheese, like that you love, as well. But when we notice that we're just really putting stuff into our body that our body's not liking, and we're just like not doing the things that we need to do to basically give ourselves the nutrients we need, and we're not taking care of ourselves, that's an indication we're in collapse. If we're fawning, we're in collapse, meaning someone is making you very uncomfortable, someone is making you feel very stressed out or threatened, and your response is to go, oh my God, you're so funny, or you're so smart. I can't think of how many times, and especially men, have said things to me that were so offensive and like made me feel so overwhelmed, like that I just was like, like total fawn response. And I think about times when I was single and I would go, out to parties or things like that, and the fear of like, if a guy hits on you and you reject him, the idea that I've had men in my face being like, oh, like, F you, you're stuck up bitch, and like all these things where they get in your face and they get really angry. And so I just fawn, right? I get into that collapse when someone gets to that place. I'm like, okay, So fawn is very much that collapse space as well. Depression, okay? So if you struggle with chronic anxiety and depression like I did, it's literally toggling between your sympathetic and your parasympathetic and your sympathetic and your parasympathetic and going back and forth, but never back, really rarely, into this place of safety. If you are breathing from your chest, if you're doing shallow breaths like this, you're in fight or flight or collapse, okay? Deep, soft, juicy belly breaths, like when you watch a dog or an animal or a baby sleeping and you see them just taking these big expansive breaths, that is when they're in a safe space, in that parasympathetic. But if you're shallow breathing, you're activated. So many of us who experience chronic trauma, complex trauma, major trauma, we already are dysregulated, meaning we're hypervigilant. Our nervous system doesn't start here. It actually starts here. It's always anxious. It's always overstimulated. It's always sensitive. It's always reacting because we're stuck. We're stuck here and we're stuck here and we can't seem to get back down here very often. So again, the somatic healing work is what trains us to get unstuck out of this fight or flight or collapse and down into this place of safety and of connection and of consciousness. Okay, so this is just what to look out for when you start feeling anxious, stressed, angry. Know that you're activated. When you start to feel like things are collapsing, falling apart, you can't do anything, you're feeling helpless, hopeless, you're in your dorsal vagal. So knowing this, there are tools we can use to move through these to get out. Now, the kind of interesting thing to notice here is that we need to kind of get through what's called biological completion. And what does this mean? So let's say we're stressed out, right? When we're in kind of like a low to moderate stress response, we can usually down regulate, do things like go for a light walk, meditate, do a little light shaking, hip rocking, breathing, breath work. And we're going to be able to kind of like get back down into here. Now, if we're charged medium to high, or we're in the dorsal vagal, we need to actually reactivate your fight or flight to get back down. Does that make sense? So if you are, and I'll move on to this one too. So if you are going up in your fight or flight, you reach a point where everybody has their kind of threshold where now we are extremely stressed. We are either totally shut down or just right at that limit. And that's actually when, in order to complete, you need to go back down by activating. So what does that mean? If you're feeling depressed, the answer is not to be gentle and meditate. It's to go lift weights. It's to run. It's to punch a punching bag, scream, have a big release where you're actually activating your fight or flight and activating and releasing, and then you can come back down. The hardest thing to do when you're in freeze or you're way too stressed out is to sit still. And I know this for myself, like I was mostly very stressed out. And so I would try and sit and meditate and my mind's racing, I'm ruminating, I'm thinking about all the things that are going wrong. I can't concentrate, I can't find stillness or quiet. And that is an indication that you need to actually have a larger release and activate your fight or flight to deactivate back into the green zone. And so I like this chart because it shows you the feelings, the emotions that are connected with being in these different nervous system states. So anytime that you're feeling any of these things, you're in activation. Anytime you're feeling these things, you're in shutdown, okay? So just take a moment and kind of look at that for yourself, because none of your emotions are personal, okay, you guys? It's like your body's a machine. It's telling you what the heck is going on with you. And all you need to do is go, oh, that's interesting. Okay, I noticed that sensation. I noticed that the thoughts coming up. I'm going to distance myself. I'm going to do my regulation, and I'm going to kind of like see what happened afterwards and process it. But I'm going to get out of this place first in my body, and then do the cognitive mental work. Is this why I feel like I need to skydive all the time? Yes, yeah. Needing a massive release, 100%. Adrenaline junkies are people who really have probably gone through a lot of stress in their life, and they need that big cathartic, activation, so that when they get out of that, it's like, whew, I feel really fucking good. And that is a normal thing. So, totally makes sense if you're running towards those kinds of experiences where it really activates that adrenaline. You're actually unsticking yourself from from a really overactivated, overstimulated state. So really cool. And you'll notice that we all reach intuitively for tools and things that feel good. And some of these things are not great for us, and some of these things are really great for us. And so, it's just noticing where you move towards and just making sure you're trying as best as you can to kind of move towards the things that are going to be more supportive for you and not break you down. And experiencing something like skydiving, or I love scuba diving. I'm total side story, but I'm a master scuba diver, and I have 15 certifications, and I love shark diving. I know it's crazy. I actually went shark diving last time about 2 years ago when I went to Bora Bora. There were 45 sharks in the water. I wasn't in a cage. We were just chilling. And that for me is my adrenaline junkie thing. So I love it. I've been down to 75, 80 feet where you can't even see the surface anymore, and everything's black. I've done night diving where you have to have flashlights and it's pitch black, and you're in 60-foot water, so you don't know what's there. But for me, that's hella fun. And so that's kind of what I reach for, along with other not as great coping mechanisms. But oh, you're so welcome, Tiana. I'm so glad this is resonating. The people need to know. I know. I feel the same way. Okay, so going on to the right-hand side of the screen here, you can also see what happens to your physical body as you are in these different states. So when we're in our safe space, everything works according to plan. Our digestion is good, our intestinal motility is good, we have a higher immune system, we resist infection. You want to survive this pandemic, find that ventral vagal as much as you can, because it's going to increase your ability to have an immune response to things outside that are happening. We're able to rest, right? We're able to just rest, relax, recuperate, be still. All of our blood circulation, oxygen circulation increases. So we're able to have better functioning of all of our internal organs. Our muscles are able to be less tense because we're flooding ourselves with that really beautiful oxygen. Our skin, oh my God, you guys, if you want to look young forever, it is not Botox. It is fucking meditation and regulation. If you do this work, you will age backwards, and you'll see that your skin changes. It becomes younger, and it's because you're not sending out these constant stress signals to your body and breaking shit down. That's why when you see people, you can put two people together who are the same age, and if one person had a lot of trauma and a lot of stress and they never really healed and they didn't regulate, and one person did, they'll look 10 years different. The one person who hasn't really healed and is still in that constant stress response is going to look much older than they are. And the person who isn't is going to look younger than they are. And so it's really interesting. Stress breaks down everything. And so we're able to regulate our emotions when we're in this space. We're able to make connections with other people, build relationships. Literally everything is better. And the only thing that decreases are your defensive responses, which is not a bad thing. Now, we're stressed and we're in our sympathetic. What happens? Our blood pressure increases, our heart rate increases, and this could cause heart problems. Our fuel availability increases, but not in the way we think. I gained about 80 pounds after I was assaulted in college, and it was my body's way of protecting itself, but I had so much cortisol circulating through my body as a stress response that it actually really prevented me from being able to process food correctly. And so we actually won't absorb nutrients in food the way we're supposed to if we're in a stress response. our body is reading our stress response, even if nothing really bad is going on. It's reading it as like, okay, we got to fight or flee, and or play dead because something bad is going on. And because of that, we don't know maybe when our next meal is gonna be, we don't know like when we're gonna eat next. So our body starts to hold on to weight. It starts to hold on to, all of whatever calories we have inside of us, rather than processing it out normally and allowing our body to kind of get into the state of homeostasis. And so we gain a lot of weight. And so, if you're somebody who is an anxious person, do not do things like CrossFit. Okay. I was doing CrossFit 6 days a week, and like all I was doing was flooding myself with more cortisol and then getting pissed off because I wasn't losing any weight. The minute I dropped that and I just started doing yin yoga and like breath work and just like relaxing, like the weight kind of just like shed. And it was very bizarre because I was not eating differently. I was exercising way less, but I was happier. And that's because my body was like, oh, okay, we're safe. So we don't have to hold on to all of this fat and sugar and energy reserves, because we don't have to worry about running for miles and miles away from anything or fighting off a predator. We're good. So if you struggle with like an up and down weight situation, not that it really matters, I'm all about just do you, and like everybody's beautiful. But if you really feel like it's affecting you and you want to like work on that, just for health reasons, and ease of life, like look at how stressed you are. Because if you're stressed and you're working out, it's just not going to do it for you. You need to just regulate and get back to that safe space. We see blood clotting happen. We see oxygen circulation increasing to your vital organs, but going away from different parts of your body. They get redirected. And so we are kind of lacking oxygen in certain really important areas of our brain and our body because we're preparing to fight or run. And so you can see also our defensive responses increase, and then we have some decreases in activity in these areas. So our immune system lowers, we're not able to digest as much, we start having gut health issues, digestion issues, our insulin will decrease as well, which is not always a good thing, although we don't want high insulin, but yes, it decreases. And that all kind of is when we're in our anxious or our angry kind of states. And then when we get into shutdown, this is where we see really major health problems pop up. And so it's so important that you guys like really pay attention to how you're doing, because even though when we're in depression or we're in collapse, we feel like we can't do much, and we feel like we're almost in a state of relaxation, but we're not, because we're just in shutdown. Just know that like all of the things that happened in the yellow zone just increased times 10. And you see now a breakdown, a really, really big breakdown in your health, in your physical health. And we see a lot of mental health problems, come from this place. And so kind of just looking at, the things that happen, not to mention when we are jolted out of our safe place and we're put into a stress response, this is going to make so much sense, you guys, too. Hopefully, your blood flow, like your oxygen, gets redirected to the parts of your body that your nervous system deem as necessary for survival. It's not necessary for survival is your thinking brain, although I would argue differently. Your body doesn't think it's necessary. So actually all of your blood flow gets cut off from your prefrontal cortex, which is the front part of your brain that houses your consciousness and your thinking and your ability to think clearly and put, ideas in order and formulate a plan. And, it really gets cut off. So if you feel like when you're in the middle of a fight with somebody, or you're anxious or really worried, or you're depressed, like you can't think clearly, or you feel like there's a disconnection, it's because you literally have no blood flow going to that part of your brain. So you can't make a conscious choice. You can't have a conscious conversation with anybody because this is cut off. The other part that gets cut off from blood flow is your creative center, your imagination, your play zone, because that's not considered to be necessary for survival. Like we can daydream when you're out of the stress, you know what I mean? That's how it thinks. It redirects the blood flow from these two areas, which by the way, you need creativity and imagination to problem solve. It redirects it all the way back down to your muscles, your heart, your lungs, preparing you to get into a fight with a predator or to run or to play dead. So in this way, it's so vital to get out of activation into that ventral vagal green zone, because then the blood flow returns and you can actually really be conscious and problem solve and do what you need to do, to then maneuver, get aligned so that you can feel out of this activation. Okay. So don't blame yourselves if you're like, I'm in fights with people or I'm doing this and like, I'm anxious and then I can't think clearly. I can't plan. It is not you. It is, you have no blood flow going to those parts of your brain. So it makes it impossible to be super in control. Let's see. So I'm just checking the chat. Yes, I love that you guys are digging it. Okay, awesome. And I love that this is clear because I want to make sure this is a lot of information. Like I'm giving you like probably like this should probably be done over like 3 different sessions. I'm so glad. Mind blowing. Yes. So is my boyfriend right when he says I'm not listening when we are fighting? Absolutely. I'm physically incapable of listening with my thinking brain. Yes. That is it. Exactly, Maya. Exactly. So you literally can't listen because in order to listen, we have to have mindfulness, we have to be present, and we have to be open and curious and calm. We can't listen when this is shut off. So really the best way to, when you're arguing with somebody or you're having a confrontation or something is going in a direction that starts to activate you and you're not actually having a conscious conversation, the tools are literally this. I am feeling pretty activated right now and I know I can't think from a conscious place, so why, and neither can you, and this isn't going to be productive. We're not going to solve anything in this interaction. It's not going to benefit anybody. We're all just going to be reacting to one another and we can't think clearly. And so I'm going to take 5, and you take yourself away from that environment, away from that person, go for a walk, go sit in your car, go into a room, close the door, go into the bathroom, whatever you can do, and just, you guys take 5. Regulate, get back down into the green zone, then have a conscious conversation, because then you're going to be able to really listen with each other, connect, and not be in that defensive energy, because you're not activated into this defensive place, which really is, part of why conscious communication and understanding how to have conscious communication and regulation is key for having really healthy relationships. And if this wasn't modeled for you growing up, which, let's be honest, most of our parents are really traumatized and we're here breaking the cycles. If we did not have that healthy mirror to teach us how to do this, we're really going to let our feelings drive all of our behaviors. And we'll feel like we need to finish a conversation, finish an argument, before we can leave. But really what's key is actually leaving and then coming back when you're both feeling more grounded and back into this safe space. So I hope that makes sense. But yeah, it's very hard to listen and have conscious communication when we're feeling really activated. So, like I mentioned before, why is this important? Well, we have environmental events and things that we go through. We're triggered every day, all day, throughout the day, with every little interaction that we have, with every little thing that goes wrong, with the traffic that we hit, with the red light we got, with the person who yelled at us who's stupid, and with family and whatever it is. Like, we're constantly being stressed out. And so really just beginning to recognize that this is a part of what it means to be human, and that we have to learn to let go of the personalization of these experiences. Don't identify with them. You are not anxious. As a human being, you aren't you, yourself, your identity. No. Always shifting into, I am experiencing anxiety. I am experiencing activation. I'm experiencing anger, irritation. I'm experiencing depression, right? Separating these feelings from our identity is really, really important, because your identity is not how you feel. These are indications for things that just need to shift, right? Just gentle shifting. So you get the triggers, right? You get the stress from your environment, then your body and brain unconsciously pick up on these signals. And if no immediate life threat is happening right in front of us, our brain then reaches to try and create a story or a reason to explain why we're feeling this way. Meanwhile, that's not important. What's important is actually just dealing with the sensations in the body and the dysregulation. The stories are your old record player of beliefs and experiences just playing on repeat and then making you choose decisions that usually keep us feeling stuck. And so these automatic thoughts, like I said, pop into our mind to try and explain these triggered feelings, because our brain wants to feel in control. It wants to feel like it understands what's happening, even if it's faulty in that sense. So if we have childhood trauma, complex trauma, things like that, we're going to have, or just an overall negative early life experience where we had a lot of shit going on, it's going to be very hard to have thoughts that are supportive or loving or conscious. So we just have to be really mindful not to let our thoughts drive everything for us. And then the last thing that happens in this cycle, that happens really in a millisecond, is that then we don't question the thoughts or challenge the validity of them. We just latch onto them to be 100% reality, and then we take action based on that. And then when we're taking action based on that, we're just reacting. We're not actually consciously, intentionally choosing how we want to respond. We're just reacting, reinforcing these already negative experiences, reinforcing the dysregulation, and we're not solving anything. We're just getting stuck and stuck and stuck. Okay, so it's really important just to dive into this work. Every single choice we make, every thought we have, every behavior we exhibit, every impulse that we give into adds up to be how we experience our life, our reality. They're the building blocks of our lived reality. And if we aren't in conscious control of our nervous system and our programming, then we are not going to be in the driver's seat of our life. So now take a moment here, screenshot this. This is super important, guys. This is not a definitive list of everything and all things, but this is all based on research. These are different psychological and physiological things that happen to us as a result of chronic dysregulation. So if you have any of these things going on, you might be dysregulated. So in the psychological aspect, we talked about it: depression, anxiety, PTSD, CPTSD, addiction, anything like personality disorders, you guys, narcissistic personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder. These are all symptoms of neurodivergent brains that have been affected by trauma. They're missing parts of the brain that need to be there to have a healthy brain, and chronic dysregulation in the nervous system. Okay, paranoia, disassociation, basically disconnecting from how you feel by numbing out, avoiding, putting things on the back burner that probably shouldn't be. If we experience shutdown, this feels like depression, paralysis. We're easily overwhelmed. So things that maybe don't affect other people as intensely as they affect, things that, like, let's say your friend, gets stuck in traffic and they're fine with it. They're like listening to music, they're super relaxed. They're like, it is what it is. But meanwhile, you're in traffic and you're like switching lanes and trying to get in front of this person, trying to get in front of that person. Meanwhile, it doesn't matter. You're not late, you're fine. There's no reason to be stressed out, but you're in that stress response. You're easily overwhelmed. Maybe you have a colleague who has twice the workload that you have, and you're still really overwhelmed. Or maybe you're in school and you're noticing that your friends can get tasks done pretty quickly. They can write their papers, they can do their assignments, and you kind of get overwhelmed and you can't get it done, right? That is a sign. Or if you get angry, defensive really quickly when someone interacts with you in a way that rubs you the wrong way, it's just your nervous system is really, really hypersensitive. Emotional volatility, so anger and rage, and having bouts of rage and bouts of explosive anger. These are, or panic attacks, right? Or attacking other people. This is all a sign of dysregulation. We have a hard time being in healthy relationships because we don't feel safe around other people. And we are relational beings. And so we have trouble with people pleasing, boundaries, low self-worth, self-esteem, and even suicidality. And these are all parts of feeling dysregulated. And now moving on to the kind of the physiological symptomology around dysregulation, inflammation, right? Inflammation, congestion, like I have right now, because I have been pretty stressed out. inflammation of any kind in your body. And so many diseases are now rooted in what we understand to be inflammation-based problems, happen from chronic stress, gut issues, IBS. I think someone had mentioned, I think kidney stones, or something going on in there, ovarian cysts, pelvic floor issues, muscle issues, tension, chronic tension, restlessness in your body, the inner vibrating, heart arrhythmia, so an irregular heartbeat, having cognition, meaning your thinking brain and your memory are impaired. You can't really remember where you, like for me, it's like my complex trauma shows up with ADHD symptoms, and actually ADHD is now really being correlated with complex trauma, and actually they're pretty much the same thing. ADHD is the kind of what happens afterwards as an expression of the parts of your brain that have been damaged from chronic stress and your dysregulated nervous system. So your memory is kind of funky. Maybe you can't remember things from a long time ago, or you don't remember your childhood, or you don't remember where you put your keys 5 minutes ago and you just had them in your hands, and you chronically are putting things down and don't remember where you put them. Your memory, or can't remember people's names when you meet them. That's something that affects me a lot, actually. I can remember a person's personality, what they do for a living, what they wore, where I met them. For the fucking life of me, I will not remember this person's name unless they tell me 500 times. You know what I mean? So memory issues, musculoskeletal issues. So fibromyalgia is a big thing. I've had a couple of clients who I've worked with who've had fibromyalgia since they were in their teen years, and they were in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. And they did 2 weeks of somatic work, and they would send me messages like, I woke up this morning and for the first time in like decades, I'm not feeling in pain. And it's just like the most freaking incredible thing in the whole world, because I had my cousin really suffered from fibromyalgia, depression, anxiety, and substance abuse problems, and she took her life when she was like 27, and none of the doctors could help her, and it was the most devastating thing. I really just like looked up to her so much, and it's one of the main reasons that I've really, not just for myself but for her, felt driven to figure out what the hell happened and like what's going on. She was in so much pain, and if only she had this knowledge and these tools, she might have been able to do something for herself about this. This can save lives, you guys, in more ways than one. So asthma, dermatological issues, if you're breaking out a lot or having like lots of skin rashes, things like eczema, chronic pain, disordered eating, nightmares, night terrors, sleeping issues, muscle tensions, even cancer has been linked to a chronically dysregulated nervous system because of all of the things that happen as a result of being in a stress response, all the chemicals that are shooting through your body, and what happens to your brain afterwards. Okay, so that is the meat of the nervous system stuff. Yeah, I know, it's all, I'm going to read these messages. It all makes sense, really, truly makes sense, you guys. Awareness is the very first step. Yeah, I know. We hate that people are right sometimes, but also it's like, we don't know what we don't know until we know it. And now we get to like just operate in a little bit of a different way and go, you know what, you're right, I'm not listening because I'm very activated. You're pissing me off. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to calm down. And then let's sit down and have like a calm conversation about this. And then you actually do get to really heal, repair, and build in your intimate relationships and friendships, like in such a big way. So it's all about just being aware. Man, I'm in both, but it makes sense that the physical ailments come from psychological, but really the nervous system, yeah, it comes from the nervous system. And I was blown away. If you actually Google it, you can, I don't know where exactly it was, but there was a study where they put the brain scans of someone with complex trauma next to someone with diagnosed ADHD, and they literally fit perfectly on top of one another with all the holes and problems and areas that weren't really activated being in the same places. So yeah, if you're struggling with ADHD or ADD, chances are there's some unresolved trauma. Meditation will help with this because it regrows the parts of your brain that have been damaged, so you actually can regulate your nervous system and then go in and actually build the parts of your brain back through neuroception, building new neural connections around safety, around love, around freedom and expansion and all of these things and how worthy you are. And that helps you regulate. It grows back these parts of your brain that may have been damaged by chronic stress. That's why I do the somatic work, and then we do the subconscious programming and the neuroception and the intentional building back of the structures of your brain that are going to allow you to live the life that feels really aligned and really good for you. I'm so glad this is like mind blowing. I know it really blew my mind when I put it all together too. And that's why I'm so excited to like formally put this all together in a dissertation and a book and like test it and like formally have all the numbers out there for you guys. Because I think we start healing the world by healing ourselves. You know, when we can find that place of happiness and groundedness, we make different decisions. We operate differently. We want other people to be happy. We want to create laws and systems and societies that are based off of love and connection and mutual respect. And, you know, we're not so triggered. If you look at the world right now, everybody's in such a massive trauma response. No one's thinking clearly, and especially people in charge. So if we can step into this space, we can tolerate stress at a whole nother level, and we will be conscious for most of our life. And then when we're like, we notice ourselves getting activated, we have the tools and resources to come back to ourselves, get back in control, and really continue operating for the betterment of humanity and the evolution of our species. Like, this is where it starts. So big implications for what this could bring into the world. And so it just starts with you getting curious about, you know, how do I incorporate this into my life? So let's see. Oh yeah, I got a private message here saying that someone in their family ended up taking their life as well. Yeah, it's because people want the pain to stop. It's not that people, most of the time when people end up, you know, taking their life, it's because they just want the pain to stop. It's not because they actually want to leave. They don't want to leave. They don't want to go away. And I know this because I've worked with suicidal clients, not in my coaching practice, but when I was actively, you know, interning for my therapy, for this therapy clinic that I was working at as a therapist. And really, it's nobody wants to hurt themselves. They just don't want to feel the pain. But the pain is rooted in dysregulation. So if we can get to this, it frees you. It fucking frees you. And it's so powerful. Yeah, a lot is clicking for you, Ashi. Good. Oh, Ermina, thank you. I'm so glad you feel that way. Yes, Diana, absolutely. We'll see you. I'm probably going to run a few minutes late. I'm going to try not to run too late here. I'm so glad you like it, Diana. And I'll send the replay out if you have to dip out. So take a screenshot of this. And this is a kind of practice. We won't get into it because we're running late. But it basically, I want you to start practicing connecting your mind with your sensations of your body. Every day, as you're moving through the day, I want you to ask yourself, where am I right now? Am I feeling safe? Am I breathing from my chest or my belly? Am I feeling activated? Am I feeling anxious? What are the sensations that are happening? And noticing, oh, for me, anxiety feels like a vibrating in my body. It feels like my mind is racing. It feels like I get hot. It feels like I want to run. It feels like I want to hide. It feels like gut. Whenever I get really anxious, I get nauseous. Right? So understanding what those specific sensations are for you, and then being able to go, oh, hello, anxiety, you're coming to visit. Let's see what all this shit's about. And just with like a little sense of humor, kind of looking at your body like it's doing its best to keep you safe. And what is that language it's giving you to tell you you're in activation, so then you can reach for your tools to deactivate. And that's really the goal. Just deactivate, calm down, de-stress, release the stress energy, let your nervous system come back home. And the more you train it to do this, the less it's going to be triggered into activation. Like I said, it's like going to the gym. Every time you notice, you connect your sensations with your conscious mind. You go, okay, here it is. Here's depression. Here's anxiety. Here's, you know, fear, worry, overwhelm, anger. Here it is. I'm activated. Okay, how can I like give myself a little love, a little kindness, a release of some kind? And then figure out what set me off this time. Like, what was the reason that I felt this way? And then attend to that. So, you know, over the next week, just monitor, and over the next lifetime, just monitor what's coming up for you. What does shutdown feel like for you? What does depression feel like for you in your body? When do you sense it starting to come on, where you feel hopeless, helpless, overwhelmed? And then just stepping in and doing what you need to do to regulate. So let's see, we're almost done here. I'll send you the link for this little 4-minute video, but I do want to just quickly touch on the last part of the workshop here. We have a couple slides. Recognition, then regulation, 100%. That is it. Let's see. Any tips on regulating nervous system around family members who once were trigger, also in group settings with family? So it's like, yeah, for me, it depends on everybody's individual situation, right? And how you feel and where you are. So I'll give you kind of like some basic tools. But if you do want some more specific things, Tiana, just DM me and like let me know what your specific situation is after the workshop, and I'll give you some voice notes with some tips. But essentially, number one, do not put yourself around family members who trigger you as much as possible. Set up boundaries, give yourself healthy distance. If you're living with your family, it's about creating a safe space for yourself inside your room. Have salt lamps, have meditation music that plays all day, go get out of the house, make sure you're spending times in environments that actually feel uplifting and supportive, that you're putting yourself around people that do make you feel safe, because that'll help. And set those boundaries. Like, don't be afraid, unless they're like violent family members who are, actively abusive and like dangerous, which then you don't want to set a boundary with those folks because they're not safe. You just start using your voice and just remove yourself, or start using your voice. Sometimes it feels safer to just remove yourself from the situation first and work on regulating and training your nervous system to not react as strongly, and then kind of coming back into the space and setting those boundaries. But with group settings, it's like, hey, if this is no longer working for you and you're there and you're starting to feel like, wow, this is getting really stressful, there's some stuff happening that I don't want to be a part of, you just go, hey, thanks so much. So great to see you guys. I gotta go. I got a thing. And just leave. You do not need to stay in any situation that's making you feel stressed out. And if you are stuck in kind of living with your family and they're very triggering, again, it's about creating safety in any other area of your existence that will help you, creating a physically safe space for yourself. So having a door to your bedroom, like even a lock, if that's okay, closing yourself in that safe space, making a really nice warm environment, even like having snacks in your room, like a little mini fridge if you can get it, off Facebook Marketplace, and that way you don't have to go to the kitchen to get your snacks or your water or whatever it is. You have your setup in your room, like make that your safe space, and that'll be helpful. And if you don't have like safe space in the house and it's really overstimulating, if you have a car, or you can go for a walk, or again, be around people and places that help you feel safe. If you have a park, go to the park. If you need to work out of your house and you don't want to be home, go to a coffee house or something like that. But really just like, it's about not putting yourself in the environment with the people that trigger you, and then seeing if they're safe enough to be able to set boundaries with and communicate with, so that they can start to meet you where you are, or just distancing yourself truly. And it sucks. It's really sad. It's really hard. But the more we keep putting ourselves in environments and around people who hurt us, we're just allowing like ourselves to get re-traumatized. And you need to protect your peace, because this is the shit that keeps you alive. Okay, so it is really important that you give yourself that permission. Family or not, they do not have a monopoly on your time, your energy. You don't owe them anything. And if they continue to hurt you, giving yourself that permission to take a giant step back for your own survival, because that's really important. Oh, Maya, yay! I'm so glad you agree to. Powerful information. You're so welcome. Tapping, Ermina, really good suggestion. They're great tapping videos on YouTube. Deep breaths and breath work is so good for regulation. Check out any of my live classes or the replays that I have up on my Instagram. Those are regulating practices that you can do on a daily basis, almost like your daily cup of coffee, to like really help yourself get into a good headspace, a good body space. Great ideas here, you guys. I love the support that you're giving each other. And yes, recognition, then regulation. So when you're feeling safe and connected and you're in your ventral vagal, look for these signs, okay? Calm, grounded, clear-minded, peaceful, nourished, centered, interconnected, rested, loving, empathic, compassionate, hopeful, social, and open. So these are all the things you're going to feel when you're in that ventral vagal. Now, when you're in your fight or flight, If you're in safety, now sympathetic is not always bad. It's not always fight flight. It could be activation into joy, playfulness, silliness, embodied pleasure, orgasmic pleasure. It's a high energy level, but it's not in a space of it's in a space of safety. It's not in a space of being unsafe. Now, when we get activated in a stress response, we're going to feel all the things we talked about already: anger, irritation, rage, defensiveness, worry, anxiety, rumination, obsessiveness, panic, and all of those things. So just noticing where you are at any given moment, and just full permission and radical acceptance. Don't try to explain it away. Don't try to create stories around it. Don't beat yourself up about it. Just look at it like it's like data that you get to use to then adjust to what you need. So again, when we're in safety, when we're in collapse or overwhelm, sometimes it's not a bad thing. We can be in collapse or overwhelm from ecstasy or surprise, like a really good surprise, or orgasm or climax or something like that. You know what I mean? So it's like, or a really good workout. Let's say you did a really heavy lifting workout or something, and then you're just like collapsing. That's actually not a bad thing. But when we're in collapse or overwhelm in a stress response, that's when we see bad things happen. Okay, that's when we see lots of suffering. And like we talked about, disassociation, depression, paralysis, helplessness, collapse, all those things, are associated with that. Reactivity, being volatile. And for the last 2 slides here, I just want to show you guys, this is what your body looks like in activation of different emotional states. So the warmer you are, the more yellow and red you are, and the cooler you are, blood flow, by the way, this is an indication of where blood flow is in your body. So wherever you see red and yellow, that's where blood is flowing. When you see black or blue, that's when there's basically a total disconnect from blood flow. So when you look at things like anger, that's why you probably feel your fists clench, your heart races, you start to feel hot in your chest. All the blood flow is kind of being redirected to this part of your body to fight. When you're feeling fear, there's much more shutdown and collapse. When you're feeling, this little thing is blocking my thing, disgust, happiness, sadness. Look, happiness is a full-bodied circulatory process. You feel it everywhere. And so just looking and seeing depression, right? This total shutdown, total lack of activation and blood flow. This is what collapse looks like. So your body is really, these are emotions, are different physiological states that your body is experiencing, and energetic states at any given time. So the whole point being of this entire process, if we know how to, number one, witness our body in the moment when it becomes activated, number two, pause and then decide what we need to return to that safe space, that ventral vagal state, we can use these tools to get back into safety so we can make conscious, rational decisions from a connected space. We have our blood flow back, and these decisions that will rather serve us rather than keep us stuck in these same kinds of suffering loops. And each time we pause and work on our nervous system and tend to it when it's in activation, before we do anything impulsively, we're healing our body and we're healing our mind from stuck trauma, stuck stress, and from staying in those loops. And we allow ourselves the chance to be the conscious architect of our life. So always recognizing we're either moving towards protecting ourselves, running away, fight, flight, or we're moving towards connection, safety, right? We're just always on this safety continuum, going back and forth based on what's going on in our day. And then to regulate, I'm not going to give you guys any of the tools right now. I do that a lot in my live classes, and I'm going to have the training program coming out. But essentially, if you are in sympathetic, if you are in that activated, anxious, angry space, if you are closer to running away, fawning, kind of like giving up, you may want to downregulate or upregulate using different activities. Like we said, downregulating is like the calmer, softer activities that just let us come down, or activate because we're way too stressed. If we're feeling lots of anger, we actually have to really release that. That's going to be a more active process, so we want to upregulate. With dorsal, when we get into depression, we actually want to upregulate. So the last thing we want to do is move our bodies, sweat, get our heart rate up, but actually that is literally what we have to do to get out of it.
So this is a homework assignment for you to take with you. I want you to start mapping out what makes you feel safe and kind of creating for yourself a list of resources and tools that you could possibly use to get yourself out of fight or flight or collapse and into that safe space. So journaling about, and again, take a screenshot of this so you have it. Who makes you feel safe? What things make you feel safe? Where do you feel safe? What environments? When are moments in time in the past where you felt really anchored in that safe space? Bringing up those memories and kind of getting curious about, okay, what was the situation that actually made me feel really safe? And can I bring more of these things into my life? And then find a place to write all this down and keep your anchors with you so that anytime you're activated, your thinking brain gets cut off, right? So it's going to be harder unless you're really, really an expert in this. It's going to be harder to kind of reach for those tools. So when you have it on a piece of paper in front of you and it's like, okay, these places, these activities, these people make me feel safe. Can I call this person right now and just talk to them and hear their voice? Can I go to this place, this park, this hiking trail, whatever it is, be around my dogs, that are going to help me feel safe again? And it's all about, again, just feeling safe and bringing it back down into that deactivated space. Okay, so that is our workshop for today. Thank you for staying for a couple of extra minutes. I appreciate it. You're so welcome, you guys. If you guys have any questions at this point, please drop them in the chat. We're going to wrap up. So that is the nervous system, and that is the first kind of part of the healing work that I do with my clients. Because once that's regulated, once we have those tools, you really can face anything, and even if you get knocked on your butt, you can pick yourself back up, you can figure out what to do. And then after that, I go into the, growing back the brain, working on the subconscious programming, having thoughts that are really supportive and loving and going to be healthy for you to help you stay in that safe place. So if you're interested at all in one-to-one, I have a couple of spots open, so just DM me and we can talk more about it. I make customized plans based on your budget and needs, and so I'd be happy to support you on your own journey. And the wait list is officially open for the OM Method certification program. The link is in my bio. I just put it up this morning. Just enter your name and your email and you'll be the first to know. I'm going to have this out in August, probably towards the end of August, because I'm putting together all the back stuff now. And essentially this is going to train you in all of this stuff, the science, and then also the tools. You're going to work with your cohort. You're going to be coaching each other, you're going to really be learning how to step into the somatic and subconscious reprogramming work. So this is for people who are either already working with clients, you're a therapist, you're a coach, you're a holistic practitioner, you want to just really beef up and have a framework for taking people through the specific methodology, or to add to the methodology you're already creating. Or you are a self-healer who is really interested in jumping into coaching. This is going to train you in all the things you need to know to be a really impactful somatic and subconscious reprogramming coach. I'm going to teach you the framework, how to work with folks, the, basically the whole framework of you can take my framework and use it on other people, and you'll be certified in this methodology, and I'm really excited to have that for you. If you want to DM me on Instagram. That is usually where I end up responding the quickest, although I have a little backlog of messages. But yeah, DM me on Instagram. You can also DM me on TikTok as well. Either of those is fine. Check out all the free downloads in my link in bio. There's so much for you there. If you have any guest coaching needs or speaking needs, let me know. I love sharing this information with anybody and everybody. And just to recap, we'll have a replay of this workshop sent out by Monday. And on Monday, we'll also be announcing the giveaway winner. I'll announce it in my stories. I will contact you as well personally and send you a copy of the Infinity program. And that's pretty much it. So any other questions as we wrap up? Any takeaways? Oh, good, yay! I'm so glad to connect with you guys. Y'all are so special, and I'm so grateful to have you in my little nerdy community. So thank you for being here. And yeah, if you need anything, I'm here. So please don't hesitate to reach out. I will not sell you on stuff. I'm not that person. I really want to support you in this because I think we all really need this work. So thank you guys. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye. You're so welcome.